And if anyone wants to chime in too about disease-resistant varieties or varieties that you like to succession together.
Do you want to go with what varieties you like in sunflowers?
Sure, yeah. We mostly grow the Pro Cut series and the Sunrich series. They're pollenless and they're generally very strong stemmed and like consistent. They've been bred for cut flower production. We in previous years we'd grown branching sunflowers, but those didn't really work out well for us. Um, and yeah, we generally prefer to just go with the Pro Cuts and the Sunriches because we know they're going to be high quality.
Yeah, that's kind of my go-to as well. I do the Sunrich Summer Provence. The size is kind of perfect. They don't get too big. I do some of the big ones too, and they get a little bit like a weapon. But yeah, I'm finding myself liking the Sunrich Summer Provence, and I usually do another Pro Cut for timing purposes, but I do my best with the standard old sunflower colors. I cannot grow a light colored sunflower to save my life. The bugs like anything that is white or light or anything like that, and they leave everything else alone. It's quite frustrating.
I saw that a little bit too. Yeah, a little bit too this season. The other thing about I think the other thing about the Sunriches and the Pro Cuts is I think one of them is a little bit faster, so you can throw them both in the ground on the same day and you kind of get a built-in succession, which is nice. I'm curious, does anyone grow the Pro Cut plums? And has anyone noticed that they are a little bit more weak-necked? I'm curious if that's how they are or if that's just a Flower Farm thing.
Actually, funnily, Procut Plum was our best performer. We had horrible stems of the white light and stuff like that. The only things that did well for us were the Procut Horizons and the plums.
Okay.
I really liked the teddy bear. They did have a bit of pollen, but nothing too crazy. Like I didn't have any complaints about that. And it was a pretty quick grow. And they were actually very short. So like potentially some people might have wished them to be taller, but they were like a perfect size for my bouquets. And then there was I had some like shorter side stems even that I used more in like jar bouquets like that. But they were really cute and people were like excited about those.
That's awesome. Did people recognize them as sunflowers? Because they're a little different.
Some people, a lot of people, yeah, were like, what is that? And then I also really liked, again, a sunflower that didn't really look like a sunflower, the Sunfill green. I did the green and the purple. So it's a petalless sunflower, and that was like a really fun texture to add.
Cool. Can you repeat those variety names? Sorry, I'm taking notes.
Sorry. Yes, Sunfill green and Sunfill purple.
We got them both from Johnny's.
Nice. There was a new Johnny's one this year that I didn't make it to in time. It's out of stock now, but the Darjeeling looks like it's similar petal habit to the gummy bear. But it's kind of like a bronzy color. All right. Any other sunflower things?
I did the teddy bear. They did really well. But as the other person said before, the branches are really small, so they're good for like table bouquet, like really short ones. And I also did the Johnny's, the chocolate one. That's the beautiful one, and I didn't have any problems with bugs or anything. The only issue I have with I did the sunspot, which is like a not a big head, but it's like a medium size. I had issues with the squirrels. They started to chew the stems and try to eat the middle of the flower, but the stems were really strong. Those were like the three I did: the chocolate, the teddy bear, and the sunspot.
Great, thank you. All
I'll
right.
Oh,
Go ahead.
if
Go
it's
ahead.
I did a lot of sunflowers this year. I didn't grow to sell as much, just more like experimenting, but I did chocolate cherry, which I believe I got from Baker's Creek, and those did really well, and I didn't have as much issues with the birds and things like that. I did grow teddy bears. Oh, and I would say the chocolate cherries were more branching. I was able to get maybe one or two long stems. But again, a lot of experimenting on my part. I did teddy bears. I did really well with those. And those produced pretty well. I wish I did more sewing of those, but I'd say they were on the shorter side. And the sun sambas from Renee's garden was pretty good as well. So it was a mix of colors, which I loved, and they grew pretty tall, varying sizes. Um, but I didn't get as much experimenting there because the deer got to me. So, but yeah, those were some of the varieties I grew.
Awesome, thank you. Deer are the worst.
Yeah, I was devastated. They were little seedlings. I'm like, oh crap.
All right, let's move on to zinnias. We're looking for good varieties that you like that are consistent. Another question is about favorite small-headed zinnias. I can start and say that we really like the Oklahoma series. They are smaller blooms, so they're easy to work with in bouquets. They also have like better disease resistance than some of the other zinnias I've found. So we've done I abbreviate them to but okay salmon and carmine and the golden yellow are ones that are popular for us.
Did you say?
Oh, and Oklahoma ivory as well. I really like the Oklahoma ivory because there is some color variation, some more pure white and some kind of creamier. And I did the Oklahoma whites I think just maybe once and didn't like that they sometimes look dirty, and I don't seem to have that issue with the ivories. And then also I really like the Queen series zinnias. I don't know if they're quite as productive, but they're just like really reliable and beautiful. And they have I feel like they stiffen up better than some of the other varieties. So they just feel very bulletproof for us. Anyone else have zinnia things to share?
Yeah, I agree with you on the Queen series. I found them to be when the mildew hit, they held strong until really the end of October for me, especially the lime series, the lime with the sort of rose in the center. They were so strong when the other stems started to go hollow and the mildew took over. I was still able to pick those into the end of October for the farmers market, which was great. So I really like those.
Awesome.
And I grow outside only, so.
I also really liked the Oklahoma series. They did really well on our farm the past 2 years. I also really like the cactus flower mix. But I will say they have gotten like mixed reviews from market customers because some people like the way that the flower petals look like cactus flowers and kind of like curl. Some people will be like, look at it and be like, oh, that flower looks old. Like, why do you have that in there? So I've, will explain that that is how they look, but then other people will be, very excited about that flower. So that kind of like has mixed reviews from customers at the market, but I think it looks really cool. It grows really well, super tall, very like strong, sturdy stem. So
Okay, that's great to hear. I think Johnny's also they released some new zinnias, and one of them I think is a cactus type.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of cactus. I don't really pay my zinnias much attention, so I don't do well with them. By that time they go in, I'm like, I've lost my patience usually. So, but when I get lucky and they do well, I love them. But the cactus has always been my favorite. I was only able to find them in mixed colors. So I have those Johnny's cactus in my little seed box. So I'm going to try them. I'm looking forward to that because I'm a fan of Johnny's. I find they're the best seeds for me. So I'll try them and let everybody know how they are.
Okay, awesome.
I can share my experience with zinnias this year. Let me get back to. So I feel like I made some beginner flower grower mistakes. Although I feel like I've been growing flowers for a long time. I did try the floret flowers. I don't know if any of you guys tried them. They were terrible. So
I want to hear more.
what's that?
I hear more about that.
Oh my God, I don't know where to begin. It was just bad. I don't know. I probably got just like under 5 marketable stems out of like a 50-foot section. So that's how bad it was.
Was
It
the
just got
germination the problem, or?
Nope, the germination was fine. Everything looked fine until it started flowering. There's just not many, not many at all marketable stems to cut. The flowers, a lot of them are deformed. So you can't pick them. It gets diseased quickly. A lot of them didn't really size or it didn't, size up in terms of like the height that's required for cutting a good stem. Just everything about it. A lot of them were like single, like layered, single, like single petals, which I try not to. I don't like picking single petal zinnias if I can avoid it. I like the doubles. Um, yeah, just overall, just nightmare. So that was floret. And then I wanted to also try the zinnias that have the little fluffy middle.
Yep, the scabiosa style ones.
Yeah. So I didn't know that those can't grow here. Or that's what I read in somebody's post, I think, that with our climate that it doesn't form that fuzzy middle. So that's why none of mine look like the catalog. So that was fun. I kind of found that the Queenie red lime kind of looks like I like them, but sometimes they look kind of dirty. I don't know if that's like a thing.
Yeah, I think they can change a little bit throughout the season too. And I find that earlier on they're throwing some more dirty looking blooms, but
Yeah.
generally grow out of that. And also we at farmers markets, we have a lot of interest in them in like single type bunches, and people like sort of have been trained to gravitate towards them, and so it's not a problem.
Okay.
I don't think you're definitely not the only one to say that sometimes they're annoying to work with because of that dirty look.
Yeah, and I feel like I've been growing Queenie for years, but yeah, like I noticed it more this year. And then I just wish I hadn't bought all my flower seeds because I wish I had bought the Oklahoma series now.
No, but just do another order. Just add some in.
I should. Yeah. I just got like a whole bunch of colors from Benaries giant, but yeah, I should do that. I do grow the Oklahoma ivory, and those are great.
I just always like to goad people on for adding more last minute seeds in because it makes me feel better about when I do that.
I know, I do that a lot with flowers. I'm like, just one more.
I
But
want to share that I have heard really good things about, in particular, the Victorian wedding floret variety and the golden owl, I think it is.
But now you can't get them anymore, right?
Oh yeah, you're right. But now you can't get them.
why
Yep.
why not?
So floret has been transitioning into focusing more on their breeding program, and they want to keep churning out new and interesting flower breeds. So they're not as interested in supplying seed for the same varieties year after year after year.
Okay, yeah.
They said that they, might continue to carry some varieties for multiple seasons. But Solocia's, for example, they did a big sale last year and they said, like, buy this, grow it, save seed. We're not going to have it again. So I'm not sure if they're going to have the zinnias. We bought a couple packets last year and I didn't have time to throw them in the ground, but we're going to try this year and see if we can save some seed.
Well, you can have the leftovers of my precious metals and Alpenglow if you want.
Okay, thanks.
All right, I'm gonna put my 2 cents in on my zinnias because I've grown zinnias for years and I have a love-hate relationship with zinnias. So I love the oaks for all the reason that you guys are talking about. The small size is terrific. They are incredibly plurific. The Queen Line series are definitely amazing. I found them to definitely hold up all the way through. Actually, even it's November, I was still field cutting them in November. Two other varieties that I definitely love growing are the Benaries. They're much bigger than either of the varieties or any of the varieties we talked about. The Benaries come in so many different colors. Love the salmon, and there's a coral color. There's a difference between the salmon and the coral. They are definitely not the same. They have hot pink and purple and yellow and red. Don't get the mix. If you ever get it, I got it. It's not worth it. Just get the colors that you like. And if you want to grow multiple colors, my suggestion would be just to grow then part of a flat, and just grow like 40 of them, but choose the colors that you want. I have grown the white, but and did just fine with it. There's a really cool lime color that is in a Benary. And if you're wanting to grow a white that's different than a Benary and a white, and it's different than a white oak, I highly recommend Polar Bear. And it's smaller, it's a little bit fluffier, more petal count, and it does really well. And the bugs did not eat it for me, and I'm field grow. So Polar Bear was a really good variety for me. So that's my 2 cents on zinnias. I'm adding my Benaries back this year because they really do give you that wow pow, and there's really nothing else like that size. So I give my vote to Queen Lines and Benaries.
Okay, thanks, Mary.
Yep.
All right, Lizzie's.
Yeah, Lizzie-anthus. How many of y'all are growing Lizzie-anthus from seed?
Me.
Are Jenny and I the only crazy people who do that?
This was my question because I love them, but I've read so many mixed reviews on growing and that they're really prone to fungus. And so I'm really curious if it's worth it. Or if it's just like a try and see and, which is how I end up doing everything anyway.
Yeah, I think it's always good to do the try and see. Because we're certified organic, can't buy in annual plugs unless they're certified, and we haven't found that, mostly because I don't know that there's any available non-pelleted Lisianthus seed, and all the pellet is not NOP compliant. So it's forced us to learn how to grow them. And it's doable. There are some varieties that we've noticed the germ rate is way more consistent on. The Voyage series is anything Voyage is great for us.
Sorry to interrupt, but we should mention that even though, so we're not allowed to grow anything that's not certified organic, and we still can't market the Lisianthus that we grow as organic, even though we grow that with all organic practices. But we are allowed to physically put them in our field, which I guess is a benefit, but we still have to market them not organically.
Yes, thank you, Rachel.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. Voyage series, good germ. That's where you were.
Yep. Yes, yeah, Jenny, what do you got?
Well, I like doing seeds, so, and I also didn't want to pay for plugs, so I got into growing Lizzie from seed. Pretty much, I would say, dare I say, I'm pretty successful at it. I grow a lot of seeds. Like I leave a lot of room for error, and I'm super attentive to them. Temperature, the germination definitely varies on type. And after they do germinate, we just really pay a lot of attention to them. We don't really, I let them dry out. I do all the things that they say to do on the tech sheet, and we're just really attentive to them. And we keep them in a cool, like they're not fast for us. We keep them in a cool, like 50-degree greenhouse. Start them again late January. But we also put them in a high tunnel, as soon as we can in March. So they have nice protection. But I like to do all the varieties, so I have to do them by seed.
Do you use any root shield on them, Jenny?
Yeah, I use root shield on everything. When I make a flat, I use flat trays. I put the dirt in them, and then I dip them in the root shielded water when I start. And then I did have some fusarium problems this year for the first time in my Lizzie patch. And so we used root shield, something else called Mycostop, which was something I found, and it didn't decimate. Yeah, we grow a lot. We have like a 1/2800 row. So they took some out, but we had plenty left. And that helped. But then this year I'm going to be dipping everything again in the root shield before I plant them out, just as double insurance.
Yeah, the root shield, I think it does its magic for like 3 months, and then you gotta
redo.
Yeah.
Yep. But I think it's worth a try. It's very rewarding to grow them from seed, in my opinion.
Yeah, they're like pets that live in your house with you all winter.
Exactly. Yeah, you really spend a lot of time. You're with them for a long time. But I find like germination, if they're moist and they have the right heat, the germination will happen. You just have to have a lot of patience because it takes forever.
And then what size cells do you use? Do you do like
288s? I use 288s.
Okay.
But I have been, and prior years I haven't been really bumping them up, but now I bump them up and fertilize them more. So I can bump them up. But the 288s work because there's not a lot of room for the bacteria stuff to grow, the orange stuff that grows around them. Doesn't hurt them, but I don't like the way it looks. But basically we also dip them, we don't overwater them. We dip them always. We try to keep the top dry even when we're watering them. So the roots just get the water and the top stays pretty dry.
Thanks, Jenny.
When do you seed them? Or like when do you start the seeds?
I start them late January. What about you, Elise?
I do like mid-January. Yeah, and I've found that I've also done them as early as like the last week in December.
Oh.
And I felt like that wasn't necessary.
And so because I've never done this before with Lisianthus, I know that they say that they need light to germinate. Are you doing the
Like a glow
sorry,
light.
yeah, no, are you doing vermiculite on top or no?
We do vermiculite. It also helps with like the algae that
Yeah.
grows off of the trees.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do light vermiculite. Like anything that is going to be in the flat for a little while, I try to put just a very light layer of the vermiculite. I think it's the very light stuff, the light vermiculite we use.
Okay.
The lightest.
That's what I normally do too. I just didn't know if that would inhibit the actual light penetration if they need light to germinate.
No, I haven't found a problem with that for Lithyanthus, or really for anything that has said it wants light to germinate. I think the light get through
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to say that we start in strips? I don't think.
Oh yeah, we start in 20 strip trays, and we get 500 seeds in there. We've also squeezed in as many as 1,000, but I think we had better success with the 500 because they have like a little bit more room to.
And then we bump up to 128s before we put them in the ground.
Does anyone want to talk about, any of the folks who buy in Lisianthus plugs want to talk about your favorite varieties?
Hey, can I just pop on and just, no pun intended, give a plug for a local grower that does tons. I'm not quite sure whether she's organic or not, but Thong from Petals Farm in Rhode Island. She has a ton of Lithyanthus. And that's her specialty. I've met her in person. I've gone up there, and I know she grows so many different kinds. So if you're not successful growing your own Lithyanthus seed, she is local, and you can drive up there. She's not too far, and pick up whatever trays you need. So I don't know if any of you guys have heard of her before. Again, the name is Petals Farm. Her website's petalsfarms.com. She's not paying me to say this. I don't grow Lithyanthus anymore, guys. I'm done. It's not a necessity for me. So I love it, but I'm just recommending her because I've had a good experience, and a lot of other local flower farmers who have bought plugs from her have been happy about it. So
Great.
Just thought I'd throw that out there for anybody who wants to give plugs a try from her.
That's super helpful.
Yep.
Quick question, guys, Rachel, when you said you can't sell it as organic, that's because it's the coating, the seed pellet coating is not NOP compliant, right? That's the reason?
Yep.
Okay. Also just wanted to mention, Sarah, that one time I did use a ton of vermiculite on my campanula seeds, and I'm pretty sure I did it too deep that it did take, cut off that light that it needed for germination. So that's ever since I've been a little bit more careful about not applying too much. So
Yoko, do you use fine or like medium or coarse vermiculite?
It's vermiculite that we literally bought like 9 years ago. So we just go through so little of it, I guess. I don't know. It's just, it was sold. I don't know. I think it was Lowe's or something. It doesn't seem, it doesn't seem too coarse, but I guess I don't know because I've only known one type.
Cool.
So I have all of my dahlias right now in vermiculite. I'm wondering if I was thinking I have plenty to just reuse that, but I'm wondering if maybe it's best to like get a new bag if these are so prone to fungus or something. I don't know if anyone has.
I wouldn't reuse it. I wouldn't reuse it because I also heard some people with the dahlias, it might be a heavier vermiculite than the lightest one. So I'm not sure what, but I wouldn't take the chance.
Okay.
Okay. How about we move on to celosia? We had questions about celosia in general, not just drying, or
yeah, one of the three people mentioned for drying, but yes, also I think generally good varieties.
Okay. Yeah, what are you all liking for celosia?
I like just like the Selway, like terracotta. It's just super easy and very productive for me. And the flamingo feather is like same page.
Wait, can you
I think
guys tell me if, sorry,
Go ahead.
If there's varieties that grow just like flamingo feather? Like, I just like the growth habit of flamingo feather, but I didn't know if there are other varieties that were exactly like that.
The Selways are air more on the side of flamingo than like the pompous plume.
What
one.
did you just say? Which variety?
The Selways that Izzy was just talking about.
Right. I feel like I've grown those before, the terracotta, and I don't think it was, I don't know, maybe.
Are you referring to like the stems or the heads or both?
I guess more so the stems, that it's like very tall and it's just easy to harvest.
The Selway's definitely like thicker, I feel.
Which one's thicker?
The Selway has like a thicker
Okay, yeah,
stem
yeah.
versus
Right.
flamingo.
I do think that, yeah. Okay.
Have you done the Ruby Parfait, Yoko?
No.
That one is just like flamingo in habit.
Just like it? Okay.
A different color. And I've found it like produces in the same way that flamingo feather does.
And that one dries really nicely too. I know that you were going to talk about that next, but the Ruby Parfait.
Yeah, that's a pretty one. And the flamingo feather is dry as well too.
I have another variety that is called Forest Fire. And it's my favorite out of all celosias ever. It's got like, it's mostly the bold hot pink and reddish, and we actually direct sow it successfully, which so at least one time I asked you, I'm like, do you think I could direct sow celosia? And you said, yeah, I think you could try it. And now I make my husband do it a couple times a year, and it's pretty good. Yeah, it's really good. It's tall, it's spiky, it's got some, it's a nice mix, but you can bunch them all together and sell them, as a 10 stem, but they're pretty big.
Wow, the stems are so red. Beautiful.
Yeah, that's my favorite. It dries pretty good too, because it's just a whole.
I'll say, as far as drying goes, I've dried or tried to dry just about every type of celosia that there is. And I feel like it's more about when it was harvested versus the variety, what your results are going to be. Like if it's less ripe and not going to seed, it's going to dry a lot better. Other than there's like a couple apricot varieties that just turn brown, and that's just what they do. But most of the other ones can dry pretty well if you have the right conditions.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. Like when they get super ripe, their color starts to fade. They look like a little dirtier. I do think that we've had better luck drying once the stems are really rigid though. So like drying too early could also be if you want like rigid stems for dried bouquets, I wouldn't recommend harvesting them without them having hardened up.
Rewinding back to just the general celosia discussion, we also grew the Selvae terracotta, and it was very prolific, but just a tangled mess for harvesting. But it was prolific. But I think the variety that I liked best was actually Chief.
So that's that's like a brain type of celosia.
Yes.
Yeah, which ones were you doing?
We just got a mix, but I really like the salmon color in that and the yellow color in that. The salmon, one of our top florist customers, anytime we had salmon, was just taking it. It's very, very nice.
Yeah. The yeah, the brain solution is popular at markets because people they look really cool. Okay. Yeah, I like haven't met a solution I don't like. There's just so many cool shapes and colors. All right. Scabiosa. Um, we grow an overwintered succession of scabiosa that goes in late fall and starts blooming in June. And that is definitely our like sturdiest, biggest bloom succession. We love Black Knight, Scabiosa, Oxford Blue, Salmon Queen, Merlot. I have a love-hate relationship with Fata Morgana. It's very in high demand for designers, but we've had trouble with getting it. It doesn't grow as consistently for us as some of the other varieties. Sometimes like looks kind of dirty or passed easily. But that also might just be us. Um, Salmon Queen. Trying to think if there are any other ones.
Did you mention
Oh,
the
the
white one?
Snow Maiden, we do a lot of. That one is a different habit. It's definitely um it's branchier and like a little bit unruly. So I find that it's like better to, cut that one really deep and or just to really stay on top of it because it can get wild fast.
Where do you get your seed from for the Fata Morgana?
I have gotten it from Wild Garden Seed. They are a great resource for organic, if you need organic seed. I've also grown it from Johnny's.
I was gonna say because I get mine from Wild Garden Seed too, and it was right on par with the Salmon Queen. I didn't have that like weird stuff going on with it. And in fact, I think when I grew it next to Johnny's stuff, like the germination for Wild Garden Seed was just the plants just look so much better than anything from like the Scabiosa from Johnny's.
Yeah. Yeah, Wild Garden, I've been really impressed with their quality.
Have you seen their new pink they have a like a Picotee blend for new
Yes.
this year? I think I got it. I think I splurged and got it this year. I'm really excited.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't seen like a purple quite like that. Yeah. Um, I know too, there's also scoop scabiosas, which you can only get from plugs. And I've heard we don't grow them, but I've seen them and I've heard amazing things about them. Their claim to fame is that they're um, stronger stems, stronger, thicker stems, bigger blooms. I think they also maybe shed less. So if you're into trying plugs, you might want to check those out.
I caved and I bought some plugs and they're in my high tunnel right now. So because I saw them at the collective and I just thought they were gorgeous. So I did get them. The plants are looking pretty nice, but who knows? It's still early. It's only January.
I don't know. Will he come back? Sorry, we have a puppy dog who might need to pee. Anyone else on Scabiosa? All right. We had some interest in baby's breath. We don't grow it. Is anyone doing that?
I started mine last year, so they're still kind of small. So I couldn't harvest any last year, but I should be able to this year. So I can't say.
Is this is like a hardy?
Yeah, yeah.
Because there's some types that are annual, and there's some types.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm doing the perennial.
I've grown the annual, and it was a little short for me. It was a little short and annoying to harvest. So it didn't really get too harvested.
Okay. Bupleurum. We grow green gold and really, really like it. It's like a very reliable bouquet filler for us in the early part of the season.
Okay, so this one was from me, Brittany, because I do the seed starting. I have had a lot of trouble with getting Bupleurum to start, and I'm like, is there a trick that I'm missing or something I'm doing, or am I giving it too much love? So I'm just like, how do you get it to start successfully? Because I've tried it a bunch of different ways now.
Okay. They like to germinate in the dark. So we make sure they're well covered over with soil. And they also like to germinate on the cooler side. So we put them underneath our greenhouse tables until they pop and then they come up. And that works pretty well for us. Anyone else have Bupleurum tips?
We also do them in blocks. I don't know if Brittany, I assume you're doing them in blocks also.
I've tried them in blocks. They didn't like it. I tried them in cells. I also tried direct seeding them. So I've just been really struggling, but we really would like to have Bupleurum on the farm. So that's why I was like, we have to talk about it.
I did Bupleurum and I did a regular 72 tray and I put them in my root cellar and they germinated so much faster than I was expecting and actually ended up with some stupid leggy stuff, which somehow I was able to catch it and it was okay. But I think it was the darkness, the high humidity, and the temperature just being that like 45, 50 degrees. And that would have been, I think it was in August or September when I was starting them to overwinter. So that was like the only place on the farm that was cool enough.
Thank you. Yeah, that makes sense.
I did the same. I was having trouble and somebody told me to cover them. So I do the same thing. I put them either, I think I put them in 128s because there's something about if you put them in a 72, they're ready sooner. If you put them in a 128, they're ready later. Or I might have that backwards, but Johnny's talks about it. But I put them in there and I stick them on a shelf in the coolest part of my greenhouse and I cover them with a flat. I cover them with a little vermiculite and then a flat. So they're really dark. And 2 weeks, I start looking at them and it works. I was having trouble before, but that was the magic touch. Somebody told me to do it.
All right.
Elise, what size blocks do you use for those?
We use 105s. It's yeah, we use the 105s.
Elise, do you overwinter some too?
Yes, we do also overwinter Bupleurum. We've done it in the field, and we've also done it in the high tunnel, and both have been successful. We direct seed those successions, and then thin down to like 3 plants, like clumps of 3 plants that are about 6 inches apart. All right, calendula. This is one that we don't grow
anymore.
Yeah. It is an edible flower though. So for whoever was asking about edible flowers, that's an option. Anyone have any calendula varieties they love or hate?
Also, if I think this has been happening a little bit, but if like this was your thing and you have more context that you want to give to people or make your question more specific, definitely jump in and do that so people can help you better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I do grow these for multiple reasons because they're an edible flower and also to make calendula oil. And I've had really good luck with Johnny's Alpha. Very, very strong. They reseed. So you got to be careful if you don't want them to reseed. You need to like cover so they do it. But super strong, beautiful. Also into November. And which is great because by the time I get to doing, infusions for oil, it's usually November. So I really like growing these. They're very, very popular. They make a great cut flower as well, but I also sell them as an edible to restaurants. They're super popular. And I did really well with the alpha, but I also tried the mix this year from Johnny's, and it did really well. And the peach were beautiful. They were really beautiful.
Great, thanks, Jean.
I was the one that asked about edibles. I've always had success with calendulas, and I love growing them. The bees love them. I've gotten my seeds mostly from True Love Seeds.
Neat.
Izzy, did you also have something you wanted to add?
I don't know if it's that helpful. I just haven't had I love calendula, but I haven't had any variety that blows me away personally, growing for cut flowers. But I've seen other people grow really great of that cream variety. I'm blanking on the name of it. It's like a really soft yellow and it's very popular if you can grow it well. I think it might just be a me thing though.
Yeah, I'm trying. Is it?
I do grow calendula every year, and there is one variety that is kind of like a puffy that it goes well like for like a small bouquet, like a table bouquet, and it has like a pink salmon variation, and that's called like the Sunset Bluff. And I've grown that one like a couple of times, but the one I grow, it actually looks like a dwarf zinnia. It's like more like a zinnia more than a calendula. And the ones I grow every year, which they do pretty well, sometimes they reseed by themselves. It's the Pacific Beauty Blend from Botanical Interest. They're yellow and orange. And the Seal Lights Calendula, which is pink. I grow it for the same purpose as the other person said, like oils, infusions, like I dry it out for teas. Yeah, mainly because of that.
Thank you. Izzy, was it the Ivory Princess, maybe, calendula?
Yeah, that's definitely it. And I've tried growing it and it doesn't look great, but I've seen other people grow it great. And I've seen it sell like hotcakes at the collective.
Cool.
I have a quick question because I was kind of experimenting with it this year and I loved it, but didn't get a, sizable stem length from it. So when you see it at the collective, what are you saying when you see a really good looking? I'm just wondering if what I'm thinking it should be is completely, I don't know. Mine are very short.
Yeah, I would think it's gotta be over 12 inches to make a decent cut. But the other thing that I think makes it look better, I feel like when I grow it, the centers are big and they're red, basically. So I'm maybe getting really open centers versus the ones that are smaller and it looks more like double. Those are the ones that I'm like, wow, whoever grew that, they did a great job, but it's not what I see from my own. I still like them though. for like a tiny bud vase in my house.
I think calendula are also very cool season loving. And maybe they'd be taller if they went in really early. I don't know when they go in for you, Kaylee, or if that would help. But
I can tell you something about that because the where I grew my calendula the whole year, right? And I start in the spring. It takes a little bit while to take off, but I have my calendula in a spot that it only gets sun in the morning and it only gets like 4 hours maximum. So in the afternoon they have to kind of like reach, so they get taller. They get mine are a little bit like stem longer and taller, and the flowers are big to be a calendula. They can
wow,
be like a little zinnia size, but I think it's because of the place they are. They don't get a lot of sun.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I keep mine are in an area that gets morning sun. It has to reach the rest of the day.
That's good to know. Bachelor's buttons. We do Black Ball and Florist Blue Boy, and have good luck with both of those. Anyone else on Bachelor's buttons?
When you're doing bachelor's buttons, are you transplanting or are you doing like a direct seed and just hoping to get the first cut out of everything before it gets tangly?
We transplant it, and we we cut deep on our first cut, and then we cut side shoots. I do really hate to harvest it though. It's really annoying.
I hate it so much. And there was I think it's Full Keel Farm down in Florida. She also hates it, but she started direct seeding it at like a super tight spacing and just getting that first cut before it gets tangly and then mowing it and moving on because just the harvest time drops drastically. And I was like, well, maybe I'll add it back in if I can harvest it and then mow it and be done.
Interesting. So a one and done cut. How many would you deadhead so that you could let more blooms open on if you're harvesting that whole plant?
I don't know. I guess it depends on how deep you would cut because if it's got multiple blooms on it and you're going for stem length, I don't know. I haven't started any for this year yet. I'm not sure yet.
Yeah.
We direct seeded ours last year. And in the right, the first blooms, I would definitely use those for cut flowers. And then it was in a very small section, and I actually left it all season and would just pop off the flowers for edible flower mixes. And that worked well, and the bees liked it. But this way I was just like not dealing with the tangle, but there were still flowers that were coming. And I did go and cut it down deep every so often, but yeah, that worked well to just kind of not have to deal with that after a certain point.
Nice. Marigolds. We do the giant orange and have had good luck with that one. It's like it's very tall and sturdy. We also do Garuda gold and Garuda yellow. We do some of the like smaller like the burning ember marigold. That habit is like is definitely different than the giant ones. It can be like a little bit more tangly, but if you stay on top of it, it's been good for us to have like a smaller bloom, and you get some other color options. What else are y'all doing for marigolds?
I don't generally love marigolds, but I grow the Kilimanjaro white, and to me, it doesn't even really look like a marigold. I've had such luck with really tall stem. I mean, the plant gets huge and really big blooms. So I really recommend that variety.
Great.
Can I ask where you get those seeds? Because I've tried that before and not to such good results.
I think it's just Baker Creek, I'm pretty sure. But then I save my seeds every year and I feel like they just get better and better. So I've probably had them for maybe like 4 or 5 years now. All of my marigold seeds I kind of just save together and don't really pay attention to what varieties they are anymore. But you can definitely tell which ones those are because they're just enormous. Whereas all the others are, that I grow are pretty petite.
All right. Anyone else on marigolds? All right. Nasturtium. We do kaleidoscope mix that we sell at our plant sale. We don't do marigolds for cuts, or I'm sorry, nasturtiums for cuts. Even though you can definitely work with them and they're beautiful in design work, but they're a little bit tangly, and we haven't done that or had much success with that.
I guess this is obvious, but we should say that both marigolds and nasturtiums edible flowers.
I don't grow nasturtiums anymore, but when I did, I would bring them in a plate to the farmer's market, and like my customers would be so like psyched about eating the flowers. So I found that there was a really neat little thing to get people interested who didn't know.
Cool.
Kind of to pop back to marigolds, the gem marigolds were really good for edible flower, like the edible flower mixes. And we actually just planted a few of those plants, or like seeded them amongst our tomatoes to just kind of like bring in the beneficials that way. And since I wasn't using them for like a cut stem, but just like popping off the heads for edible flower, it was fine that they were kind of like not as like, I wasn't worried what the stem was doing. But those were a really good addition to a mix.
I love the smell of those.
Yeah, they actually taste good. I mean, marigolds are edible, but a lot of the marigolds don't taste good. Kind of have to go with the gem, the orange, the lemon, which are very frail compared to the marigolds we're used to seeing, right? But I do the same thing. I put mine in between my tomatoes.
Cool. Okay, anyone else for nasturtium? All right, poppies are next on the list. Not sure if whoever asked if they were interested in annual poppies or perennial poppies for pods.
Have you ever grown poppies here? Because I never had great luck with them.
We do bread seed poppy for the pods. The flowers are very like short-lived, and if you cut it, it will last like maybe a day. But the pods are great. And then there's a different type of poppy, the Icelandic poppies that are better for cuts. We did those for some years, but stopped growing them because for us they didn't make as much sense. They're trickier that you have to harvest them often, and some say you have to sear the ends of them, and they're a little bit disease prone, so we stopped growing them. But I know that there are some folks who grow really beautiful Icelandic poppies that I've seen at the collective.
I absolutely love growing poppies. The Icelandic poppies were my not just my top grossing crop, but they were the smallest amount of bed space compared to everything else. It was super easy to pick every morning, and then sometimes I would do again in the afternoon. And if you get them at that cracked bud stage, they just sit in the cooler, and it's great because there's so many flowers that just won't last in the cooler, or you are unsure if you got it at the right time or whatever. And the poppies were just super easy for me. I also grew Amazing Gray and what was the other variety mix? Uh, Mother of Pearl. Mother of Pearl mix I got from Wild Garden Seed, and it was actually a little too varied to be able to sell easily because it had everything from the grays of the Amazing Gray all the way to whites and pinks and then bright reds. And it was hard to make sure that a bunch that was in cracked bud stage would be able to match my rooted picture. So either I had to put reds in or had to avoid putting reds in, and it was just kind of a mess. But the Amazing Grays, every single stem that I harvested, I sold. And I'm adding in, I have Amazing Gray again this year, and then there's another variety called something with love that I got from Wild Garden Seed again because I discontinued they're not selling the Amazing Gray, and thankfully I have extra seed left over. I was surprised at being able to sell so many of the Amazing Gray and the Mother of Pearl poppies because of their notorious lack of vase life. But because it was being used in design work and I was harvesting at the proper stage and being able to keep it cold, I think that's what made it work.
Great.
And yes, sorry, one more thing. I did sear the stems, and if you use a large butane torch, it goes super fast. Just don't keep your hair back.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you. All right, stock. Anyone have thoughts on stock?
Hey, I have a quick question on the poppies. Sorry, I was across the room. I couldn't get to the computer. I tried to, some of my bread seed poppies, I think the seeds just aren't germinating as well as they could. So is there some seeds that are better than others? Because I just love the pods.
Yeah. We've been saving our seed for some years and haven't had any trouble with germination. We do the large lavender, and we also do the rattle poppies. But yeah, maybe trying some like saved seed.
Okay. Yeah, I have some saved seed. Maybe it's just in the new location where we are, the seeds. The old location, I didn't have a problem. In this location, maybe it's just I have to find a different part for the soil that will take the poppies when I, put them out there.
Yeah. You're direct seeding?
I'm direct seeding, yeah. Should I be doing it differently?
No, the direct seeding is what's recommended. We transplant ours. We do them from plugs that we start ourselves. Because we have like a lot of weed pressure, and when we direct seed, it's usually a disaster. You have to be a little bit more careful with them because they're kind of fragile and spindly, but we have been able to transplant them with good success. You could try that too.
Okay, and when do you start the seeds then?
We start them, I want to say we probably start them in February and try to get them planted out like late March, early April.
And are you putting them like in the bottom of your seed room or in a root cellar because they like it cold?
We germinate them in our little grow space setup under grow lights, and then they get moved to the greenhouse, where it's cooler for sure.
So they don't mind being germinated at a warmer temperature then?
Nope, I haven't.
All right, I'll give it a whirl. See what happens. Cool, thanks.
Yeah. Anyone want to talk about stock?
I'll talk about stock. It's one of my favorites. I think I'm saying that a lot. Hence my big seed bill as well. So I do grow stock. I try to select. What I do is I take I like the iron series because I'm a very big fan of straight and thick stems. I don't like wonky or anything, and they're very straight and uniform. But they only have like 55% double. So what I do with them is I'll sow them in like a 288 again and try to select. Sometimes I'm good, sometimes I'm bad, but I don't want the singles. But and then I'll bump them up when I think that they're good to a 128 or something else. So that's how I kind of tackle the double single issue, but they're a great seller for me. The designers eat them up. And they're one cut, but I don't mind that as well because then I can turn over the bed. But I really like the iron and the cat's double white. The things that there's only a few that are high double, but the ones that aren't, that's how I tackle that.
Yeah. We also like both of the, like anything in the iron series, and the cat's high double white are good for us. We do net the cat's high double white, but we don't net anything in the iron series because it's so strong.
I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, last year you were doing like temperature stuff to try to make it easier to select for the stocks. Jenny, do you do anything to them to try to make it easier to find, or are you just growing them normally?
I used to do like mostly visual. There's some that are a little deformed at the beginning stage, so I chuck them, and there's a color difference also. But then one year my heat in my greenhouse died, and they were out, but they had a cover on them, and that helped. That completely helped make them. So I am going to do some temperature screening. I think I'm just going to put them in like a fridge for a couple of days. They'll probably not care, but yeah, I'm definitely going to try to do that just to get a better selection.
Cool. All right, sweet peas. This is a crop that we don't do. I'm scared of doing them, but they're really beautiful. And I've seen lots of great sweet pea bunches at the collective. Anyone doing sweet peas? All right. Tweedia. We do the I believe it's Heavenly Blue. And it's gone well for us. We've started doing it at a tighter spacing, which makes it grow a little bit taller, and you can sort of like get more out of a bed. It is a bit of a pain to harvest because it has like this stems with milky sap. So we wear gloves for that. And we do occasionally have hydration issues, but find that if we dip the stems in either boiling water for a few seconds or let it sit in hot water for a little while, that generally they perk back up. Anyone else growing Tweedia?
I've done it, but it was killed me to put it at the 12 inches because that's so much space. So what did you move it to, your spacing?
We do 4 rows, 6 inches, and I feel like we could even go a little bit tighter.
Mhm.
Tweedia also it will overwinter. I haven't tried overwintering it in the field, but we do have a rolling tunnel, and we'll grow in the tunnel, and then in the spring push the tunnel off. And so that Tweedia in the second year in the field is generally like the tallest, nicest Tweedia, because the plants are older, and also it can really hit the ground running in the spring. All right, filler, airy disc fillers. What are you all liking for fillers?
What type of year, like what part of the season for these fillers?
I'm not sure who requested this.
I asked about fillers and any time of the year, really. I'm not quite sure what to plant as annuals for fillers. I mean, I have a lot of mint varieties and things like that I use for filler, but other than that, I was looking at some grasses and what else was I looking at? Um, like Sweet Annie I was looking at. I'm not sure if that looks like a good filler. Dusty Miller, I've used before. But any recommendations really?
Yeah. We definitely like Buplorum in the spring. It's as long as you wait until the flowers are open, it hydrates really well, and it's also really long lasting. So you can stash it in the cooler for more than a week and it's fine. Let's see, what else? White dill, and um, Daucus amidara are good fillers in the spring. We use Frosted Explosion a lot in the summer just to kind of add. It's not, I guess it doesn't like take up a lot of space, but it definitely like adds a bit of sparkle. And people at the market really like it. Just don't let it drop seed all over your field because you'll have it everywhere.
Same with Sweet Annie.
Oh God. Yeah. Same with Annie. Anyone doing Orlia, or is it Didiscus?
Yeah, I do both of those. Orlia can be hard to hydrate. I've done two different methods. What I did this past year was I actually ripped up the whole plant and I put it in totes right into the cooler. And then as I needed stems for pre-orders, I would just cut from the plants that were very happy in the walk-in cooler. And they had great, like they worth no floppiness. The other way to do it is to get up before the sun. As long as there's no sun touching it and you harvest it, then it seems to stay hydrated pretty well. I've also done Saponaria, and that came both in pink and white. I think the pink did better than the white last year. Agrostema, if you like really tangly bits that take way too long to harvest. The ocean pearls is super prolific, and you'll look at a bed and you'll be like, oh, there's only this much, and there's a lot more. And it also comes in purple. What's the one? experiment. Chinese forget-me-not. It comes in blue and pink. I've only grown the blue. To hydrate that, as soon as I'm done harvesting it, I wrap it immediately, nice and tight, and then put it in the cooler wrapped so it's hydrating straight up, and that seems to help. Yeah, there's a lot of early season fillers, but
I guess Corinth is another one.
oh, yep, that's another I really like Sorrent. Difficult to save seed from, where like it doesn't want to release the seed. It took forever for it to mature, but that's beyond the point. But yeah, I really like growing that.
I have a question about Sorrent. So I was always kind of like not sure what was the right time of harvest for it. And worried that it was going to be too droopy. And I like did a few different vase trials, but do you have a suggestion about when you like know that it's definitely ready for harvest?
I kind of went off of the color, where its droopiness was kind of, I don't know, part of what makes me like it was that it was just like doing its thing. But yeah, as long as it wasn't already starting to set seed and had good color, I didn't have too much of an issue with it.
Cool.
Another filler, I think, is Bells of Ireland.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bells is a good one. You can use dill, flowering dill. Some folks like flowering basil, eucalyptus is a good one.
How about cress? I like
Yeah,
to
I was gonna say cress too.
Yeah. Out in the field sometimes, or the stuff I purposefully planted.
Yeah. My vote is definitely for cress. I think I grow like 3 or 4 kinds of cress, and if you want something that you can just like leave in the cooler, I have literally left cress in the cooler for 3 weeks and not even thought about it, and I still pull it out and use it. When in doubt, cress has saved my tail. I don't know how many times. I also like plectranthus. I'm probably not saying it correctly. I buy it as a plug. I buy it from Farmer Bailey. And it is like oh geez, guys, you gotta help me here. Why the fuzzy white stuff? Why am I losing my brain?
Like it looks
it's like a Dusty Miller. It's like a Dusty Miller on steroids.
Yeah,
and I buy it in a flat. I think it comes in 1/28, and I buy the flat, and I put it in. It does like nothing for weeks. You think it's never gonna grow. I double plant it. I space it 9 inches apart. I don't listen to Farmer Bailey at all. And I double plant it, and I do it in fabric because it just takes so long. And I planted early. I probably planted the beginning, probably like beginning in May. And I do net it, and it grows between 3 to 4 feet tall. If you cut it, it will then go ahead and give you a second and third flush. It is my workhorse. I pick it from August through November, and it goes great with my dahlias and all my fall stuff. And it will last in the cooler probably 2 to 3 weeks, no doubt. Like, I can't live without it. It's definitely my workhorse, and I call it my chunk. If you're doing any big floral work or any urns or anything like that, it's huge, and it lasts. I would not recommend trying to do it out of water if you're going to be doing any design work with it, but it definitely lasts a long time. Izzy, I know you've seen it at the collective when I brought it in. It is literally up to my armpits. So she's definitely a workhorse. So if you haven't tried that one, I highly recommend that one.
Cool. Thanks, Mary.
Yeah, thanks for spelling that one, Rachel. I'm terrible with that one. It is awful, but I'm definitely not good with the Latin names. But give it a whirl. Also in the heat, I definitely
water it more. I just overhead water. I don't care. I don't grow that much. So I'll give it a drink. It's going to be really hot. It definitely likes water. It doesn't like to be soggy, but it definitely likes water. And if it flops for you when you cut it, it means it's not ready quite. Like you think it's ready. You can do like the bobble, just like you would for like a zinnia. If the top of it isn't really firm, it's too early to pick it. And I do pinch it. Oh, I forgot to say, I pinch it really, really hard. Later in the season, it also blooms like a lavender spike, almost like a salvia. It's purpley, like maroon spike later in the season. So it has so many good uses. I'm telling you guys, not a lot of people grow it. It does so well in market bouquets. It does really, really well. It lasts in the cooler literally 3 weeks. Cut it again, like you put it in your buckets and cut it maybe 10 days later. And I love it. Just love it. I love it. I love it. I can't say it enough. I tell everybody to grow it because it's such a workhorse. It takes a while, but it's worth growing.
Did you say you grow the Silver Shield variety?
I think that's the only kind I can get. I think that's the only kind Farmer Bailey has on their website. Whatever the one they have on Farmer Bailey is the one that I grow. Okay. How's that? I think it's only one kind. And the leaves are really big. And it's really good to take up a lot of space. And it will root in the buckets for you. It will start rooting out. I've never tried to save the seeds. I don't know if you guys have any other questions about it, but I know that one or other local farms have tried to grow it and they don't grow it anymore. And I think I'm really the only one around that grows it. I'm the only person I see growing it. So give it a whirl. It's inexpensive, and definitely give it a pinch after a few sets of leaves, and pinch it hard. Don't be afraid because it's going to branch out. Definitely grow it in fabric. Don't not grow it in fabric or something else. You're just going to be spending all your time weeding away at it, and it's kind of I have my gloves on, sorry, but it's gonna grow like the bottom of the stalks kind of grow sideways, but they will start to straighten up. You may have to like try to feed them through some of the netting, but don't worry, they're gonna grow way through the netting. And but plant them nice and close. So someone said, what do you mean by the fabric? I just use the regular
landscape fabric.
Say it again.
Landscape fabric.
Right, just the regular landscape fabric that I burn holes in, and I do 9-inch spacing, and I put two in a hole, and they do great.
Thanks, Mary.
Yep.
I think maybe so. It's 7:42, and we didn't really like set an ending time, but I think like there's more stuff to talk about. I think we will hang out. At least we're willing to talk till 8. If people want to stay and talk about some more stuff, but also if you have to go, like no worries. Thank you so much for coming, and we appreciate everybody coming.
Yeah, thanks, y'all.
But we'll keep going. If there's anything that we haven't hit that you can stay for and you really want to, definitely like throw it in the chat and we can move it up on the priority list.
All right, so salvia, that's another one that we don't grow. So I don't have too much about it, but anyone else have thoughts on salvia?
I guess I'll just add, I grew it this year and I really loved, it did really well. I did a lot of, companion planting. So it was like next to my marigolds and dahlias. Say like the spears were like really the part that I'd say the people that I handed my flowers out to really liked. I'm trying to remember the variety. I'll put it in the chat, but I really enjoyed salvia. I mostly grew it around all my beds to try to combat the voles that are in my area. But I have voles, those mice mole things. But yeah, I really enjoyed them. It was very resilient. Like all season long. It really didn't have any pest issues, so I absolutely love it. And the bees loved it. So not as much fragrance, but I'd say the color and resilience, as far as whenever I cut it and put them in the fridge, they did pretty well.
Cool. That's great to hear it helped a little bit with the bowls.
I think they did. I mean, I ended up I made raised beds this year because I had a neighbor warn me about growing in ground. I'm gonna try this year, but raised beds really helped, but not as many like animals were eating certain beds that had it grown in it. So I think it helped deter for some pests like deer. But anyway, yeah.
How about lavender? This is another one that we don't grow.
I tried to seed lavender and it germinated, but then died. I'm curious if anyone's ever tried seeding it, thoughts there, but
Yeah, I grow phenomenal. And that's really the only one that makes it for me. All the other ones sort of peter out.
Cool. And then the last thing on our list is,
well, we have another page, but
oh, we do.
Yeah.
Whoops. Bulb varieties. What bulbs are you interested in?
We could just do these things and then we can always come
Okay, yeah, we
back
can
if...
come back to them. Okay, edible flowers. Anyone have any? I know we've talked about gem marigold and nasturtium and bachelor's buttons. Anyone have other edible flowers that they love? Okay. All right, perennials. Best varieties to grow overall or invest in and grasses. We have good luck with 9-bark. And that is, you can use it as a foliage. It will also in the spring it'll flower, so you can kind of do different things with it. It flowers on second year wood, so you don't prune it if you want to have flowers on it in the second year. There's so many perennials. It's hard to talk about it broadly, but Baptisia is an herbaceous perennial that we grow a lot of and really like. It's another dual purpose one. It flowers in the spring. It makes a spike that looks like a lupine. And then you can also harvest the foliage and use that throughout the summer. And it's very low maintenance, so definitely recommend that.
Elise, you stole my answer with Baptisia. I also I try to grow it from seed because I try to do everything from seed, but just for the newer growers, I'm kicking myself for not planting peonies, when I first learned about flowers because they take so long, but I feel like that's a great investment. It's pricey if you get a number of them, but they'll outlast everybody. So I feel like that's, if you're going to invest in any perennial for cut flowers, that would be my vote.
Yeah, that's good advice.
Three perennials that kind of performed well for us last year: Lismachia, Astilbe, Delft Lace, and also Sedum. It's a very simple one, but very, very prolific, and it had a good reception with our customers. So
can you repeat the first one that you said? I got the Astilbe and the Sedum. What was the first one?
Lismachia. It's like a white, like a like a loopy kind of a flower. Lismachia.
Got it. Thank you.
I agree. I really like sedum as well. And then I also really liked the chocolate Joe Pye weed that I planted, but the only thing is the foliage, I think, starts looking a little weathered. I guess I had just a bad year with some pest issues with it, but it started looking a little tattered. But before that, it had some really interesting color. So I liked that. I really like the darker foliage and trying to find some of those, those varieties as well.
I'm going to put my 2 cents in for hellebores, guys. If you're starting, buy yourself some hellebores. It's you won't regret it. They do take a while to mature. I've been growing hellebores probably for, I don't know, 10 years. And there's so many different varieties. You could go crazy, but they're a no-brainer, and you can use the leaves later in the season, and definitely the flowers like no other. They hold up so long. So if you have a space, just even if you just get, a dozen plants, they will grow over the years. And early in the season, when you want to mix with some of your earlier plants, some ranunculus or your tulips or things like that, there's nothing like a hellebore. And if you are selling to designers, hellebores go for a hefty price. So you don't need much, and you will get a bunch of nice stems out of them. So
how much shade do you give them? I know that they like shade, and I'm just like, how much shade?
Okay, so how much shade do I give them? Guess what? My field is full sun, and I had to dig them. They were growing in shade where I was before, and I don't have that space right now. So everything that I dug up from my old location and moved to my new location is in sun. It is in the what I call like the least sunniest spot. And they even get sun in the summer, full sun in the middle of the summer. So I would say they get maybe 4 to 5 hours of full sun, but they prefer no sun. So as long as they're hydrated, I think that they can tolerate. They may not bloom as much for me right now in the location that they're at, but when they are in their prolific state, where they're going to be blooming the most and heavily, which is in early spring, they are in the shade just by the way that the sun moves on that part of the field that does have the longest shade period. So, I mean, I'm picking from like March through early June on my hellebores.
We also grow hellebore. I do also recommend making sure that the varieties you're picking are good for cut flowers, because not all of them are great for cuts. There are Farmer Bailey has some great ones right now that are upward facing, which is helpful. We put in some hellebore when we first started here, and for whatever reason, this variety just like doesn't, it's not as good a cut. And I didn't really realize until I got some of these Bailey ones and realized like how much more vigorous and how much better they hydrated. Yeah, just do a little research beforehand, and I'm gonna go and see if I can get the name of the Bailey one for y'all right now.
We could, while you're doing that, we could talk about herbs real quick. I know we've touched on basil and dill and mint, but does anybody have other good herbs?
I love sage. It's my favorite herb ever. I think it's super versatile, and I planted it all over. I used to help do some landscaping at this woman's house who just had these gorgeous sage plants and like super mature. So I love to eat it and fry it and use it in arrangements, and that's my fave.
Oh, cool. Makes a good dried flower too.
Oh, I haven't done that with.
Yeah, it's like a nice bulky dried filler.
Hmm.
The hellebore we grow that we really like is from the Ice and Roses series.
We also maybe grew oregano. Did we throw it off?
Oh yeah, we do oregano as a flowering filler, and we do a kind called Herrenhausen that has like purple stems and light purple flowers. Also like your regular flowering oregano is really beautiful. That one has it's more like light pink. I it's like really heavy, and the Herrenhausen oregano, I've had trouble with it kind of just like turning into this big mat that just like lays on the ground. But this year we did 2 layers of netting and stakes closer together, and it worked out great.
I like the for filling in, especially like August, September. I like the chocolate mint in flower arrangement. Super pretty. It's a very purple, very dark leaf, and very aromatic. People love it, and it's totally edible, obviously. And I also love growing shiso. Super popular, beautiful purple leaf. It comes in green. And lemon verbena. It's another really, put it in flower arrangements, has very aromatic. It like jumps out as an aroma. So those are my faves.
Cool.
What was the name of that oregano? I didn't, it was a little muffled. I couldn't hear that.
I'll put it in the chat for you.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, we had some questions about wildflowers and like native flowers. So I don't know if anyone who's on the call put a question in about that and whether they have anything more specific, but if anybody has any guidance on that.
Hi, that was my other question. Just because I have a small meadow that I'm trying to, I guess, keep to some degree, but I've just been kind of curious. Like, I don't want to grow certain varieties that take over the meadow necessarily, so I'm trying to be mindful there. So just curious, like, if there's like at least any thoughts there, like what's a flower that once you plant one, it'll spread and you don't have to put so much seed out. That makes any sense? And if not, it's okay. This has been great.
American Meadows has, I mean, it has some cool wildflower mixes. And yeah, I might try going with a mix. We've had what are they? The dire cosmos, sulfur cosmos work out well for kind of perennializing. Trying to think if there are any others, but yeah, check out some mixes.
I don't know if this, I don't know anything about flowers, but when we tossed our mixes, I feel like there's like tiger lilies in them and maybe
like
a daisy
Shasta
thing.
daisy.
Yeah.
Yeah, mountain mint.
Let me ask you a question. Like with native flowers, because they're like sometimes too tiny and flimsy, like they're, I mean, they're beautiful, but sometimes they can be difficult to work. Do you do you use really native flowers for arrangements, except for like foliage? Because I've seen arrangements and they pretty much use like ironweed, like mainly foliage, but not like real arrangements. Like there is a few people that I know that they use wildflowers for like arrangements. Do you guys use any native flowers?
We don't use wildflowers. We are, starting our own annuals from seed, but I feel like I hear people talking about wildflowers a lot at the farmers market. and I think that like there are some flowers that sort of look like wildflowers that we cultivate, like cosmos, that are very like light and airy. But we don't like specifically grow any wildflowers. And I'm not super up on my native flowers. I think Joe Pyeweed is one that we do grow, is a great filler.
There's a Sweet William too that's native that does pretty well.
Cool.
There's native columbine. Does really well if it's not too sunny.
Cool. Okay, so we could, what time is it?
I think it's
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock,
Okay.
yeah.
I guess does anybody have a burning question that we did not answer that we could do quick? Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for coming.
Can I ask you a question before you go?
Yeah.
It applies for everyone. How did you guys know what kind of flowers to grow, and who makes, if you make arrangements, do you make the arrangements or do you sell the flowers to someone else that will make the arrangements?
On our farm, it's just been a lot of like trial and error for what works for like the various types of flowers that we put in bouquets. And we do a little bit, we do retail bouquets, and we also sell wholesale, like straight bunches wholesale. So we do a little bit of both. Also,
Thank
like
you.
Johnny's has really great resources, like all different things that they've trialed, where they share like the very detailed trial information, and like lots of good culture notes. So highly recommend if checking out Johnny's for cut flower information.
Thank you.
Do you have like a book? I feel like you have a couple of books that you love too.
Oh yeah. These two books are the ones I go for the most. This one is Specialty Cut Flowers. It's Alan Armitage and Judy Lauschman. And then I got this one through the Association for Specialty Cut Flowers, which is another organization that I highly recommend. They have lots of good resources, and you get access to like a Facebook group where you can see all of these questions that have been asked, or ask other questions about anything cut flower related. So they had talked about this book, and it's called Post-Harvest Handling of Cut Flowers and Greens. And it just has a page for each type of flower and gives you any pertinent information about stage of harvest or vase life, storage, that kind of thing. So those are my go-tos.
I second those books. They're like the Bibles.
Yeah.
And they're like the textbook version. I get a lot of information out of the how to farm books, like Lynn Basinski, the cut flower farmer, like the original editor of the Growing for Market, all that kind of stuff. But it's those textbooks that are the reference books that are the ones you're going to reach for constantly. And the AFCFG, the Facebook group, I love when I search the group for something and I go down this rabbit hole of all the things that I didn't know could go wrong with something. And you're like, oh, okay. Glad I didn't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I ask questions on there, and like people are really good at responding, and sometimes you can even find the answer to your question.
Well, you did mine. That's Hawaiian beetle bug or whatever, that moth that ate all of my fucking celosia. I'm sorry, all of my celosia last year. It was the same moth that you had.
That's right. That's right. I didn't see it this year, not to get too off track, but hopefully you didn't have it this year either.
Well, I didn't grow celosia this year, so.
Oh. Yeah. Everyone, thank you so much. This was wonderful. It's great to share information with you all. And I hope we'll do it again next year.
And we'll send out, I think we'll send out the recording and also notes. So you guys can have that too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you so
Have
much.
a happy 2025. Thank
Happy
you.
2025.
Thank you.